Hello, if you've made it to this stage, congratulations to you. So you're welcome to another lesson today where we'll be connecting you to the database. And let's bring in Mongoose. Now, why do we need Mongoose? Now, Mongoose is actually a database ORM. What ORM stands for is Object Related Mapper. It actually gives us the ability for us to write MongoDB queries in a very short form. So we need Mongoose. So you have to install Mongoose. So I'll do npm install Mongoose. And another package that we also love to install is the env.env. Now the .env is like an environment. It's where we declare our constants and our password, secret keys, API keys, constants. I mean, your DB URL. You don't want to put it here so it don't become visible to the users. So you can put it in .env folder. So that .env will create it by saying .env. We install by using .env. Sorry, we say .env. So you can install as many packages as you want to install together. So .env. That's it, exactly the spelling. Once you do that, you hit enter, then these packages will be installed. I've already installed that on my system, so I just have to require it. The first thing I'm going to be looking at, and I want us to really get, really understand, is how the .env actually works. So I'm going to be requiring it and configure it. So I'll just require it because I don't need to store it in a variable. I don't think I'll ever need it. So there's no need storing it in a variable. So I'll require what is called the .env. Now the .env is required. There's a method in the .env that is called .config. So I'll just fire out the method. You can see that .config. So the method has been fired, which means that the .env is already ready for use. Now, this is the most important part of the .env, which you should take note of. Now, when you want to create the file for the .env that is going to contain all the password, the API keys, and the rest of them, you'll try as much as possible to create it in a file called .env. Can you see it? Dots. I mean, the read dot itself, env. So you create that and create that in the root folder. I've already done that. So just create a file called .env. It must be the same name. So you can't use any other name. So it must be this name. So if you go to .env, you can see I've already put in some constants. So this is how we declare constants on variables or whatever you may want to call it. They are called constants, not really variables. Now, we have password, and this is what I want to put in as password. You don't do this. You don't do this as a string. No, you just write it that way. That is the way it accepts it, the data. So this is my surname, and here is the connection string to the DB URL. So this constant that I've actually declared here are constant that I can access in any part of the system. So how do I access that quickly? So you can access that when you come into the app.js. When you come into the app.js, then you bring in the .env folder. For example, I want to print out what I have created here, which is DB URL. Now, by the way, we're going to be needing a DB URL. That same URL you created in Mongoose. So you're going to enter the DB URL. You can see this is the DB string, right? Now this / here is the database I'm trying to create. So this is the database name. So I'm calling it API DB. So you can call it whatever, database you want to call it. But the most important part of it is that this part is going to be a string. So immediately after the string, then you have this API this. So this is your database. So automatically create this database. This is what connects you to where your cluster is. Is that okay? So you enter the right detail, paste it, enter the right password, and you're good to go. So I'm not going to be showing you my password. So I'm just going to do that behind the scene. But let's assume this is what I have in there, and I want to print it out. I want to access this. So how then do I access it? So I can go to my, app.env just to access that. I can quickly come down to any part of it, maybe towards this place, and just console.log out. I think there is one that is called, what's the name? So let me check that name again. Okay, dburl. So I'll just console.log at dburl. So dburl. Now, I know this is what every one of us is expecting. I should be able to control to paste out this and say dburl. But if you do this, you're going to get an error. So how do you access it? Yes, this is the name of the variable. You don't just access it, the name of the constant. You don't just access it this way. Now, the way you access it is called process. You used process.env dot then the name of that constant that was declared. So this is how you access it. This is how you access, the dburl. So if you check that out now, if I save it and try to run, I thought I was running this before now. So npm start. So in front of this, you're going to see the dburl printed out. This is the dburl. Right, this is it printed out. So whatever you have in there, you can print it out. So if I have a username, I can also print it out, which I call user. Similarly, I can print it anything that we have in there by using process.env. You can see that's the first, then dot the name of what you want to print out. So what I'm trying to print out here is called user. So if I run this again, I save it and run this, you're going to see the user has been printed out, which is my user name, just like that. Now I can also use this process.env to actually set the port in a very much more flexible and automated way. So here I'm strictly telling the port that it must be 4,000. What if we host it on the internet? So how is it going to get its own port? So for that, I'm going to be creating a variable here. So I'll call that variable const, because we don't intend to change it soon. Then it's going to be called port. And this is what I will do. I'll do process.env dot ports. Now you'll be wondering, port wasn't created here. How come I'm getting a port? How come I want to access something that is not created here? There are some keywords that are already created in our environment. Port is one of them. Some other ones are what we call, others are, for example, we have that of the username. I think I should quickly show you how that of the username. If you want to see the username of this my system, I can just print it out and just say dot username. So you can't use this. So I can use this as dot username. It's going to print out the name of this my system, the username of this my system. So there are some that are already declared that are not visible, right? So port is also one of them. So we're going to say P-O-R-T. So that is port itself. So we're going to say we're declaring a certain port. Now the port is going to be flexible. That is, if it's going remote, it's going to pick up the port that the remote server is providing. Then we can put all, and we'll put 4,000, which means that any of these can actually work out, right? So if it is not remote, then it is local. Then we should have it at 4,000. So instead of me putting 4,000 here, I'll just take this off and put ports. Then the next thing I will have to do is to concatenate this with the word ports, so we can tell the port that it is running. So we can say this is ports, P-O-R-T. So that is it. So if you still run this application, everything is going to run, nothing is going to break. It still works very well, exactly the way it should work. So that is the way the .env works. Now, in the next video, I'm going to be showing you how you can bring in your mongoose and connect to your mongoose. Thank you.